Welcome to another week in review. We're going to be looking at the trading week of May 26th, 2025. Monday is Memorial Day, so I won't be trading. I don't know if anybody will be trading the shortened futures session, but equities are closed, so no real interest in me trading that day personally. Getting into data just quickly for the remainder of the week, there's not a ton. Tuesday morning, we have durable goods. I don't really expect much there. 10 a.m., we have consumer confidence on Tuesday. We have a two-year note auction at 1 p.m., and then at 8 p.m. we have the Fed's Williams speaking. Wednesday, again, not much as far as data goes. We do have 10 a.m. manufacturing index, 5-year note auction. We do have the FOMC minutes released at 2 p.m. Wednesday after hours, I think, will matter more. We do have NVIDIA earnings. I'll cover earnings after as well, but Wednesday will probably be pretty impactful after hours. Thursday, we have GDP and jobless claims at 8:30. 10 a.m. pending home sales. We have Goolsby speaking at 10:40. 7-year note auction at 1 p.m. and then a couple earnings after hours. Friday, we have the PCE print at 8:30 a.m. We have Chicago PMI 9:45 and 10 a.m. consumer confidence and inflation expectations as well. So Friday, a little bit more impactful with PCE. And then obviously we have FOMC minutes Wednesday and earnings after hours. So quickly look at earnings this week. The big one that I think, the only real one that I think that matters from a market moving perspective this week would be NVIDIA after hours on Wednesday. So obviously we have Salesforce as well. Thursday we have Costco, which should be interesting. But as far as general impact and sentiment movers for semis and potentially tech, I think obviously NVIDIA is going to be pretty impactful. I have no idea up or down on these. I never guess on earnings, but something obviously to note if you're looking at any type of positioning or swing positions, etc., that we do have that on Wednesday night. So the expected move for the S&P cash index this week is about 115 points or 1.8%. So fairly normal for this volatility. It's contracted quite a bit. So we'll have to see, if we reach the upper or lower bounds of that range this week. Getting into last week, so we're looking at the ES futures for the S&P 500. This was a very challenging week for me. I was looking for the pullback. I just didn't get an entry for it. So just to kind of summarize what happened last week. So we had a nice gap down on Monday, coming into Monday's session. Then we had an immediate buy and trend day up all the way, that's setting the weekly high in the regular trading hours session. We swept last week's high on Monday, I should say. And then Thursday we had that slow, gross ETH move down. We had an extremely choppy day in the regular trading session, which we printed an inside day. Thursday, we had another overnight sell and an immediate buy right at RTH open, back up into the yearly open pivots, and then we finally liquidated later in the day on the 20-year bond auction we had, taking us down into this gross overnight Thursday range. And again, Thursday, regular trading was a buy, and it was a long trade again, which then liquidated M period, and then we liquidated M period again on Friday. So challenging week in the sense of I was looking for this pullback, but as far as like from an intraday perspective, I didn't get any fills up into this prior week high fail, and then the action that we had following on the Tuesday made it difficult to look positionally short, in my opinion. I know some people did catch this. I actually do know some people that did catch this. They played this very well. As far as me from an intraday perspective, this was just very challenging for me to try and be on the short side when we couldn't really liquidate until we finally had it, and it was either overnight or it was an M period sell straight down. So I missed this correctional move, which is unfortunate. The week was okay catching some intraday moves, but again, overall challenging week for me, even though we did pretty much what I was looking for. Even if you refer to the last video I put out, I was looking basically to remain short under 59.50s. But as far as intraday action goes, we really didn't get that until we had this liquidation on Wednesday. And it was just tough. It was tough to catch, and unfortunately I didn't. So one of those weeks. Going into this week, we stopped at a major area on higher time frames. So going back, months, basically, we've been talking about this 57.20 area, this 57.40, 57.20 area. Sellers had every opportunity on Friday to take this below this massive RTH gap. and they didn't do it. So there's a few ways I'm looking at this. Well, I should say there's one real singular way I'm looking at this. If we're looking at higher time frames, if we shift over to the daily, the ETH session low touched yearly VWAP to the tick. So we were looking for, going into this week, I was looking for this pullback, and I was looking to see if we established any type of higher low or any type of weekly lows in this range back inside this prior balance, holding this gap, holding these moving averages. I wanted to see if there's any interest from the buy side, from buyers, to basically try and print another higher low here to continue the move up. We did do that on Friday. So we are holding pretty much exactly where you'd want to see us hold. We are leaving this gap unfilled so far. My primary focus this week really is going to be around the lower range of Friday's value, as well as the prior weekly low in the regular trading session at 57.80s. If we can't sell, if sellers can't break the momentum, or if sellers can't keep the momentum they had from Friday and they can't break down below 57.80s, basically, if we're seeing, some attempts to get down here, but we just keep getting bought up, we keep seeing aggressive buying. We had extremely aggressive buying pre-market open, 925, right here from those lows, and we never even revisited it in the regular trading session. That was a big tell for me, at least from the session perspective. So if we can't even come back down into this range and test those buyers again, then I think it's just going to be one of those situations where, from a higher time frame perspective, I'm just going to remain long. I'm going to be looking at this as potentially forming a swing low, and I'll stay long probably the rest of the quarter. And I'll keep looking for, these rotations back up to get us back up into last week's range, ultimately test last week's naked POC for the weekly, and test last week's value area high, and then look to explore higher. So keeping it really simple this week, the big thing for me, strength will be inability to sell basically below last week's low. So if we see, if we do see sellers step up right away, if we see some continuation back down, but we're putting in a decent bid down into 57.40s to 57.20s, potentially even filling this gap into 5700, and we reclaim 57.80s, it's just going to be a long for me. I'm just going to stay long. I'll probably start entering swing long positions and see if we can ride these back up into the highs. The flip side to this is that sellers do keep momentum, and we see value start to form basically inside of the gap. So below 5800s, we see value start to frame lower on the daily. We see volume start to get put in here, and then we see no acceptance back above. So if sellers are able to do that, if we do see a distribution start to form below here, and we see more acceptance lower, and we see acceptance below 5780s and below, obviously the Liberation Day spikes right here too, we see acceptance below here, then I'll be looking on the short side, and I'll look to see if we can basically backfill all the way down into the Globex gap into 5680s and down into the poor low that was left on that session a few weeks back at 5660s. So it's just going to be about basically how we're trading right here. So how we're trading underneath this prior gap. This is the 200-day moving average in purple right here. This is the 100-day. This is the 20-day moving average, all in the daily time frames. If we see no ability to sell below this, I'm just going to stay long, and I'll keep long, looking for the rotation all the way back up to the highs. The NASDAQ is going to be basically the exact same thing. We should note too, the NASDAQ didn't take out previous week's low in the RTH session. That's another bit of a tell for me, at least right now. The NASDAQ, even though we did sell, the NASDAQ outperformed still. We still held up, even on that bad news about the tariffs for iPhone tariffs that came out for 25% or whatever it was. It doesn't really matter what the headline was, but even on that news, we didn't take out the previous week's low in the RTH session. So again, something to bear in mind here. So if we can't sell below 20,800s, if we can't get below this huge pivot on the weekly and monthly timeframes, as well as this RTH gap that's still unfilled, if we see no acceptance below this, if we see a sweep gets bought right back up, again, I'm just staying long. I'll stay long for the remainder of the quarter, very likely, and look to see if we can get back up into 21,500s and more likely up into 22K again. That's how I'm going to look at that. The flip side again is we see, we do see sellers keep momentum below those daily lows. We see a distribution start to form here. We see acceptance below last week's low into 20,800s, and that would put me squarely on the sell side and probably be looking for the test of this lower major pivot at 20,350s into the gap fill at 20,280s, and then obviously we'd have to see if there's any responsive buying down into there. We also have the prior Liberation Day highs and April highs down in here as well, which we never actually back tested on higher time frames. So just going to keep that really simple. I think that's about as simple as I can make it this week, is just basically watch what happened into Friday's lower range and last week's low. And if we can't get below it, if we see no acceptance below it, then I think sellers' ability to take this market lower, probably for the next few weeks into June, end of June, is probably very limited. They had every opportunity to liquidate this further on Friday, especially on the NASDAQ, and they didn't take out last week's low on the NASDAQ. So just things I'm considering when I look at this from a bigger picture perspective. So obviously we have NVIDIA's earnings on Wednesday. That could change things, but I would hazard a guess that will be inconsequential as far as larger market moves. I think if the market's going to accept lower or higher, I don't think it's necessarily going to be purely because of NVIDIA. I think we'll see it before. I think we'll see indications before that. That would be my guess here. So I think as far as like bigger picture, again, I'm a day trader, so I'm either in shorter term swings, or I'm looking at intraday trades. The bigger picture doesn't really matter to me from a trading perspective. I do think it's interesting if we're looking at the weekly. I do think it's interesting the fact that we haven't actually closed a week below a prior weekly low since March 31st. So we've had this hugely aggressive uptrend, up move, that basically we completely traversed the entire sell down we had. So I think if you're looking to be mega short this market, I'm not personally, but if you're looking to be mega short this market, I think what you really need to see is weeklies start closing below prior weeks. And again, we haven't had that since March 31st. So until I really see, something like that start to take shape on the future side, I don't really think I'd be looking for a lower high on higher time frames. That's my personal opinion, at least. Like, I think for me, I'm more interested in looking for potentially a higher low to see this market continue up higher until we really see week closes on a weekly time frame. That's where I think I'd really shift my perspective and start to look for potentially a continuation move back down, and just basically look at this as like a retrace. But I don't see that yet. I don't see a reason to look for that yet. I know the macro picture sucks, but at least from a price action perspective, I'm not interested in the macro. I don't care. I'm purely looking at what is price doing, where is price likely to go. So that's how I'm looking at it for this week. Again, from like a bigger picture perspective, that's just kind of my thoughts. I don't know if that's going to help anybody. It's not actionable, but at least from a larger perspective, or larger time frame perspective, that's at least how I'm looking at it personally. So, not trying to put too much emphasis in headlines, and not trying to put too much emphasis in yields, etc. I know there's so many people online that just flood timelines with all of that. I think from intraday, a day trading perspective, a short-term swing trading perspective, just focus on price, focus on where we're going. I think that's the simplest thing to do, and hopefully, at least my view here, works out for me. But if it helps you in any way, leave a like, comment on the video, subscribe if you haven't. That would mean a lot. I'm hoping this week gives us some decent action. It's a short trading week. It's a relatively narrow range that's on the expected move. So hopefully we get some actionable areas. But again, big thing is just going to be watching the lower part of Friday's range and last week's low, and what kind of response we get down here. And that's really going to dictate, probably the next few weeks of trading for me, I think. So hopefully that helps. Good luck this week.